And boom, we're live. Welcome, guys. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to BitcoinEasy.io, and welcome to my very first live stream on the channel. Actually, yesterday, some of you caught it, I started a live stream just when Bitcoin started crashing, and we lost our range here on the daily chart, right? Our local range, and not only on the daily chart, across all the smaller time frames. And on the 3-day charts, weekly charts, everything is drifting over there as well, looking pretty grim. Now what we got to do is we're going to try and identify where the potential bottom lays here for this current crash. And we're going to see what we got to do from a bullish perspective to get back on track to challenge our previous highs like we were planning to do before that hack happened the other day, where that North Korean hacker decided to just take 1.4 billion worth of ETH from Bybit, and the whole market started panicking and turning downwards, even though everything looked extremely bullish across all the larger timeframes. 1-day chart and up, you looked at it and it was extremely bullish. So you can see how a little event like that, well, little event, it's a huge event, obviously the biggest heist in the history of crypto, can take such a huge effect on the market. And that also brings me to thinking about all the big banks and governments that are now entering the crypto game, that they will have a lot of control over the market to manipulate it in the way that they want to. And I'm not a huge fan of that. But nonetheless, let's get into the charts now and see what can be done to save the Bitcoin price from going down to our lowest price targets that we've been talking about over the last few weeks, and then 72K and 74K region. Right, let's get over into the charts. Here we have it, starting out on the daily chart. And the key thing that we want to see here now, let's look at the bullish scenarios first, right? So obviously, we've been trading here sideways since last year, basically. Since the end of November, we've been establishing this range here, where we've always been bouncing out of our base here, our home base that I like to call it, our demand area. And we put in these highs here, usually going up to the 102K, and on 2 occasions, obviously, putting in new all-time highs here of 107K or 108K and 109K, right? So we can see the sideways range here. And now we just closed here just below our previous closing low of the range. And that, of course, provoked further price movement to the downside. And now we're sitting here in a range where we can see that we're getting some support here from this block here before we broke out of it and put in our high, and some other stuff that we can see on other timeframes in a second as well. But the key thing that we need to do here now on a daily closing basis, the ideal thing that we want to see is something like this here that we saw the other day, where I told you guys this candle here that was threatening, of course, a huge play that we've been looking at the whole time, right? We saw that in previous ranges whenever we lost the 100 EMA here on the daily chart, that on a closing basis that we ended up going to lower price targets in the range. And that's what I told you guys yesterday. I will upload the video, actually. I put a voiceover on it and subtitles on it because I just felt like an idiot. I sat here for literally, I didn't even want to do the video. I was on my way out. I was going to record a video in the evening, and then I saw what happened on the screen in my living room when I came out the shower, and I was like, guys, I got to put out a live stream now. And then I told you about in many videos before, and all the videos that we looked at before, that once we start closing below this moving average here on a daily closing basis and close within this range here, that it's very likely that we're not getting support from there anymore, since when we penetrate a support that often, that it's likely that bulls give up, that they realize we're not picking enough demand here from this range to break out of this range and to break our current highs and to find higher price targets. Therefore, we look now for a lower price target to pick up demand there, and then potentially rally back up from there and break the current range this way. So to get back in the charts, what you see here, right, is this candle that's now seemingly floating in the air, not really holding on to anything really strong. So we need to find a bounce somewhere here to rally back into this range, close back within it, and then form a nice long leg doji candle here that obviously then signals a movement to the other side, right? That we're going back to the upside. And of course, that would be a really, really bullish thing to see on the chart, as there was a lot of chances for the bears to take the price lower. And even though the price crashed after the hack the other day, we still managed to hold the range up here, right? This is just now happening a few days afterwards, as the market was waiting for a response whether bulls are still in control or whether bears have a chance now to take over. And this is exactly what we see here. We're hanging on to the range with potentially a wick, but the ideal thing would be to close back inside the range. Now over on the 3-day chart, I'm going through the larger time frames first this time around, because obviously on the small time frames all the support is gone and we can't see anything anymore. So we've been looking here at this trend line within the 3-day chart, and that was in perfect confluence here with our range closes on the low side, right? You can see here we closed within this range that's represented here by these two orange bars every time. Even a couple days ago, not yesterday, the day before, we closed this candle where we spent most of the day outside the range. And then when the futures opened in the evening on Sunday, we rallied back up and closed within the range. But then the next day, of course, volatility to the downside started. We didn't manage to close back in within the range. And here we can see it clearly now as well. We're taking out that potential higher low that we were looking at for so long. And that was giving us a lot of hope that we're going from here and back up to test the previous highs. So here we had a low. You can see it here. We just pick out a drawing tool, makes it easier. One low, higher low, and here we were trying to confirm another higher low and to build a structure where we then, of course, make a higher high as well. We can see here we have a high, higher high, and then that higher low structure would have formed sort of a upsloping channel here, where we then were obviously aiming for a high that breaks the previous all-time high, and potentially that channel then, and to get to our all-time high price target. That also marks the end of the cycle then potentially, since we had a potential cycle top in April, May, that data was showing us that was very likely, or another one, of course, year end. Guessing that is, of course, not my specialty, since I don't have a crystal ball, but a lot of things were pointing in the direction that we're getting extremely bullish now and breaking out of this range here that we've been trading in for the last couple of months, right? So this is the same thing here that we want to see on the daily chart, on the 3-day chart, right? We just want to turn this into a long wick here, marking strong bullish momentum, and that we bulls get the price back into this range. Then obviously we want to see a 3-day close here, at least back in the range, right? Back above 92,500. And for our most bullish scenario here, we want to see a rally all the way up, back above 95,800 roughly, close in there in a couple of days. And then that would mark an extremely bullish momentum for the bulls. And then we would obviously aim for higher price targets in the 102K range and the 106 to 109K range then after that. But then there's a few other things that we have to consider here, such as moving averages. On the 3-day chart, we can see here there's a really, really nice support for our current trend here. This is the green moving average that we can see. That is the 100 on the 3-day chart. Is it the 100? Yes, it's the 100 simple moving average on the 3-day chart. And you can see that we breached it briefly here in the previous range and then bounced back on it and came back up. And that's lining up here also in that key area of 72K to 74K. So there's a potential spot that I've been talking about for a long time with you guys as well, that if we lose this range up here, if we don't manage to find support here in this area, bounce back up from it and break the previous highs, that it's likely that we come down here, that bulls are looking for lower price targets to buy Bitcoin back, to find more demand in another area, and that range would be the most likely then, the same way we did it here, right? We looked at it on the daily chart many times before. We saw here, we were looking at these two moving averages, the 100 EMA and the 20 EMA on the daily chart. And there we identified that we utilized the shorter one, the faster moving average, the 20, as our support in rapid price expansion phases where we're putting in new highs. Once we lose it, we then always come down back to the 100 EMA. Here in this occasion, exactly a year ago, we just touched it, closed back above it, rallied back onto the 20, and then used it once again as support in our rally here into the new range. Once we lost it, we started trading sideways here, and then once we got rejected by it, we ended up going back down to the previous range to pick up support from there, and then eventually to break out that range and to look for higher price targets. So that obviously is a very likely scenario here for Bitcoin as well. But if we don't hold this range here, then obviously all the support below us is very thin until this range here comes. There's a few moving averages and also some Fibonacci levels that we can look at in a second that are giving us current support. But until we don't see something on the smaller time frames at least forming that looks like a reversal on the current downtrend here, then we don't want to take action quite yet. And the first thing we want to see here is more support below here to confirm that we can set our orders then later for this area here to find long positions in this support area right here. Right, that's really clearly identified. That could go as low as 70K, as we have strong support all the way till down there. And that would be a very strong psychological target, and even slightly below, as that was our top back in 2021 for the bull market cycle. So what we want to see here now on the 3-day chart as well is these Fibonacci retracements that I was talking about. So one, for example, let's do it on the weekly actually. There I have it drawn up already. Here you can see a very strong support, first of all, from the green moving average here as well. That's the 50 SMA on the, no, sorry, the 100 SMA on the weekly chart. And the black one is the 50, right? We can see once we lost the 50, we came down to the 100 here in the bull market and bounced back up. So now we can see here as well that we're losing the 50. We haven't closed below it yet. And see here, once we came close to it, we actually ended up bouncing up from it and putting in another high. But once we closed below it, we then got rejected by it and came down here to the 100. So we got to see now from this perspective as well on a weekly closing basis, we definitely want to stay above that moving average. That would also align here perfectly with our previous range that we're currently sitting under, somewhere around 93,800 from a closing perspective. That's what we want to achieve by week's end. But then here, for a bullish perspective on the current level that we're sitting up, there we could find a bounce here. There we see the 38.2. And here we have two different Fibonacci retracements coming from the bottom of the trend. You can see here, we basically bottomed out in our bear market and then started forming higher lows and higher highs. So that is the start of the trend. That's where we take the retracement from them till the top here of that area. And there we can see that we retrace down to that moving average that I mentioned earlier in alignment with the 38.2 on the Fibonacci retracement. That moving average is on, if you compare it to the Fibonacci retracement, a similar retracement from here, from the consolidation area, where we then formed this uptrend here to the current top. There you can see that we're sitting right about the 38.2 where we bounced off last time around. But that moving average that we're looking at as a really solid support here for this bull market. As you can see, we bounced off it twice here in the previous range. And once we got above it here, we basically marked the start of the bull market. That sits in alignment with that key area right around 72K to 74K, sitting just above it here at 75K. And in that area as well, another key level on the Fibonacci retracement is the 61.8. So we have these two levels here really to look at now in the range of 86K to 85K even. We could find a bounce here and then rally back up above all this stuff that we can see on the chart, closing on a weekly closing basis back above 93,000, 94K roughly here. That would give us a really, really strong indications that bulls are still in control and that we're continuing up here to try and break the previous highs. Same thing is obviously clear for the case for all the confirmation levels that we just identified on the smaller time frames, on the 3-day chart and on the daily chart. And here, if you want to get aggressive, then we get now into the smaller time frames as well. Starting out here on the hourly chart. Let me just set it up quickly. Where it's actually starting to look pretty nice here. You can see we're forming here. We have one of these long leg dojis that we're always looking for at the bottom of a downtrend. Not always, but oftentimes these mark the bottom here. And now we're looking for confirmation, obviously. Where does the confirmation lay? So we want to get above the previous high candle then before that. So we have this downtrend here, right? We're trying to form this reversal pattern here. And for that, we have this long leg doji going down, bulls pulling the price back up. And now with the next candle, what we want to do is close above the previous candle of before that doji. So our target here is right around 89,400 on a closing basis. We want to get above that. Ideal, we want to see a bullish engulfing here where we take the previous high there out as well. So right between 89,400 and 89,600 is the range that we want to close in here. And then we have a strong signal that we're at least testing here the underside again. And if we break above there, then again, that obviously then drifts over into the larger time frames, and we're seeing a trend reversal here on the larger time frames then as well. And that would be the very bullish scenario. The bearish scenario obviously would be closing below everything that we just saw on the larger time frames, including the daily chart, right? We don't want to fall here into below this area here where we always just wick down and then close back above. We want to do the same thing that we did in previous occasions and see this here as a liquidation candle then, where a lot of stop losses been taken out and other positions got liquidated, and just get down there, rally back up and close within the range. So here on a daily closing basis, once again, right above 92K, that would be ideal here to close back in the range. Would have given us a strong signal that we're testing here the 98 to 99K range again, and above there, obviously our targets lay at around 102,000 to 106,000 and 109,000. So we have it clear now from a bullish and bearish perspective. Bullish perspective, we're right at the line in the sand here now. We want to get a bounce from here and rally back into the range. If we don't hold this now, then it's most likely that we're getting down to our targets here that we saw earlier. First of all, on the Fibonacci retracement, we see here very strong levels. Here's some hidden support to 50 potentially, aligns with some other stuff and a psychological target right around 80K. But then the most likely bottom out target here for this downtrend then would be the area between 75K and 70K, most likely in the 72K to 74K range. All right, guys, I think that's it. Just want to look at one more thing that I haven't looked at with you guys before, and that is the futures chart here, the CME chart for Bitcoin. And there we have some really significant gaps that we need to look at. Switch it over here to the daily chart. And the first one, the largest one that we want to see here, you know, when we close gaps that we find from future market openings, then we usually close them. We don't always close them, but most of the time Bitcoin tends to close them. And when it closes them, it doesn't just get to the spot where the chart, where the gap started. It usually goes beyond that. And if we look at this massive gap here that we formed on the way up, right, we can see that that lays right between 81,000 and 77K. So the most likely scenario would be here that we get below this price target, exactly then also to the range that we've been looking at, somewhere between 74K and 72K. The other more bullish scenario is obviously that we see here is another gap, right, that we just created now when the futures trading started opening again, and the futures trading started to open again. Sorry guys, I'm mumbling here a little bit. And what we want to do here now is get it close back above this moving average here, and then close this gap here. And then hopefully that would take us back into the range. We close above there then again and continue to the upside. But both ways, we have a nice, very clear gap here in both directions. And they line up perfectly with all the numbers that we just saw as our targets for bullish scenarios and bearish scenarios on the charts, right? Here we have right around 94K to the top of it. This is obviously where we want to get to close the gap. Then we see the range above there is exactly, the lows of that range is exactly at that number here on a daily closing basis on the CME chart. And then to the downside, we saw that it lines up perfectly with our key support level in case we lose this range here now. Right, guys, I think I have it covered now. There's some other stuff that I wanted to get into as well, but we can do that on another video or another stream in the future. But yeah, guys, that was fun. I hope that worked. I hope I'm recording my voice and my cameras are both working, and that this will actually go live now and that you guys get to see it. And I will make sure to post the other video as well. Yesterday I did a live stream exactly at the moment when we started crashing, and I pointed out basically these levels here as well, just like I did in all of the previous videos on the channel, as you can see. if you want to just scroll down in the library and watch anything there. Basically, the targets are, my bias hasn't changed. The targets are exactly the same, and we're still looking for the same thing in the charts. And yeah, you know where the opportunities lay now as well on the smaller time frames, as we set our targets on the larger time frames. We're looking here for an underside test. Let me go to the regular daily chart here. Yeah, we see here that we're expecting, if we're closing back inside the range, we're expecting at least an underside test here of this range, right around 96K to upwards towards 99K. That range, a really, really strong target here to put some take profit targets into. And then obviously, if we break that range, then we also would break this downtrend here. And then our targets are clear here to the upside. Everything unchanged, everything basically exactly the same. I just explained you something without opening the chart. But yeah, here you see it, guys. See, I'm still an amateur at this. Posted a lot of videos, guys, but when it comes to streaming, obviously everything has to work as a flow, and I still need to get better at this. But yeah, here it's very clear that if we close back within the range, that we're at least expecting an underside test then to see if we continue this downtrend, right? And then we would get here to that area once again between 98K and 98,300, a key area that I've been looking at now for weeks. But yeah, if we stay out of here on a closing basis below the previous lows here in the range, then there's, in my books, no other clear target here than, once again, guys, the range of 72 to 74K. And yeah, so this is it basically for me for today. I wanted to post a video later on, but price action was rapid and pretty ugly right now for the bulls. So I had to make sure to put out the video that you know what to look out for and what indicators and price levels I'm looking at right now. And yeah, on the daily chart here, make sure, just let me get over there once again. Make sure to keep an eye here on this pattern that's forming right now. If you want to find an early opportunity to re-enter, right? There's only a couple minutes left now here, 6-7 minutes left on this candle. But we're trying here for a turnaround, right? Ideally, we want to get above that. You see here the 20 EMA and the 100 EMA on the hourly chart, perfectly in line here currently with the previous support of the range that we broke out of after the weekend, after the futures opened. Yeah, this is the line in the sand to get back over and to make things look attractive again on the larger time frames as well. But here we're now forming this reversal pattern, so really interesting to see how far the price can be taken back up again and if it drifts over into the larger time frames. Right, guys, that's it for me for today. I hope you enjoyed my first, hopefully working, functioning live stream here on the channel. And I'm really happy if you guys come back. Let me know down in the comments. Did you enjoy this? Do you prefer live? Do you prefer videos? If you're new to the channel, of course, warm welcome. Happy if you join us here for the long term and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Last week I posted a strategy video. Let me just show you quickly on the channel, where I spoke about pivoting and how to spot entries and exits for trades across multiple time frames. And that is really interesting, of course, anyone who's struggling with that kind of stuff, when stuff like now happens in the charts, you know, like where we just suddenly get a hacker coming into the market and taking out 1.4 billion. And when the price looks extremely strong and moving upwards, that suddenly we get a shift in the market and we're moving downwards. Then check out this video here. Where did I put it? Crypto Trading 101, the last video basically on the channel that you can see. And there I explained a lot of strategy that you can utilize in order to spot those sudden trend shifts and get onto the right side of it and take an opportunity and open positions in the opposite direction when the time is right and the opportunity presents itself. Okay, guys, nothing else to add here now. Before I start repeating myself, you guys know what to look out for. Let me just leave it here on the hourly chart so you can observe this candle here heading up. We want to see it close, like I just said here, back above that key level here, back above 89,400, and that would give us a really, really nice opportunity here to at least see the price going up towards 91,400. All right, guys, I'm heading out now. I'm going to go to the gym, as I usually do after I record my videos, and then enjoy the rest of the day. Hope you guys do the same. As always, happy trading and see you soon.